And welcome back. Tonight's walk is on Tuesday, August 18th, and we get some fun weather on this one. There are thunderstorms rolling in, so we might get some lightning, we might get some thunder, might even get rained on. I've already got a little bit of dribblage going on. But, it's a good, interesting night to hopefully get a spooky walk in. As for movies, I had some interesting ones this last weekend. The first one was a kind of unexpected revisit that's been making some headway on social media and all that, which was the recut of the second X-Files movie. So it was the X-Files, I Want to Believe, and then the new version is, everyone mispronounces this, so I'm not even going to worry about it, because it looks like Vrach Frankenshteyn. However it's pronounced, it's Russian essentially for like Victor Frankenstein or however, or Dr. Frankenstein even, I'm not sure which. Which for new viewers, that subtitle makes zero sense, makes even less sense than I Want to Believe, because at least that ties in with the show. But it's also kind of a weird, unnecessary spoiler too. But so for some background on this movie, I mean, there's already the placement that, like, if you're young enough, you don't really have the, you probably know of it, but you don't necessarily have the groundwork of, like, how big the X-Files was as a show in the 90s. Like, that thing was huge. And I remember even as a kid, like, my family, we were there from, like, day one. We saw the premiere, whatever Friday night that it started was. And, like, we were hooked. I mean, we were big kind of spooky stories and odd phenomenon buffs anyway. And so having this show come out, yeah, it was just like, it was a huge deal. It was appointment television from day one. Something we'd all gather together to watch. The only other show like that was Star Trek The Next Generation. So, we loved the original show, always caught it. If somebody was at work or doing something, we'd, record the newest episode for them. And it was a huge show across the board. It's kind of says something for the fact that their first movie was in between, I think, seasons 5 and 6. And was an okay-ish movie, it just didn't make a lot of sense because it was part of their mythology. And their overarching mythology of the show just, it never stayed consistent. By the end of the show, it was an absolute disaster. And that could kind of be said of the movie, or of the series in general. I'd say, like, the first 7 seasons of the show, like, all-time classic TV. The last 2 seasons of the show, just an absolute cluster. There was still some good stuff here and there. You still get the occasional good episode. You still had good actors involved, but everything about the show took a nosedive in those last 2 seasons. Even just basic style of directing, pacing, music even got worse despite being a lot of the same crew. But yeah, just the show as a whole really kind of took a nosedive in the last couple of seasons and sort of petered out. It was still big enough, but yeah, it kind of lost the vibe. And, it was, I think, 6 years after the show ended that I Want to Believe came out in theaters. And they were very careful at the time to hide what it was about. Like, we kind of got some basic release that, like, okay, it's a standalone, it's like a, monster of the week kind of one. As opposed to main mythology, which it was a good idea when you're that many years apart. But they even put out fake things like behind the scenes photos of like werewolves and stuff, anything to try and hide what this movie was about. They, keep that a nice big mystery to see if that would like help the box office. Can't say as it did, because it came out in the summer of 2008. Which is the same summer that, like, Iron Man and The Dark Knight and stuff like that were just taking all the money. And, and as far as I know, it wasn't, like, a disaster financially. It just wasn't really successful either. It just sort of happened. collectively, yeah, not great returns on it. And the quality of the movie was also, it wasn't really there. You're coming back to it years later. They kind of scrub the events of the ending of the show just kind of to the side, like, oh, that doesn't matter right now. There's time to solve another mystery. But the mystery wasn't interesting either. The two main characters, Mulder and Scully, are brought back into the FBI to help solve a missing persons case because there's a missing agent. And like the only lead is from a psychic priest who's also a pedo. So yeah, so that's about the most. So the two supernatural aspects, kind of spooky aspects of the film, is this priest psychic, and that the kidnappers are involved in bizarro experiments. Thus, the Frankenshteyn part. This barely plays into anything though. Like it's extra bizarre how not spooky, how not supernatural the film is, and especially as a threat. Like in the first X-Files movie, like I said, it's a mythology one, but it's lots of stuff to do with aliens, government conspiracies. There's spaceships, there's alien attacks, there's all sorts of crazy stuff. Oh, there's genetically altered bees. There's big theatrical level threats and explosions and all the good things you go to the theater for. And in the sequel, it's Russians. That's pretty much the threat. It's just Russians. It's not inspiring. But yeah, when it came out, I had been a long-term fan of the series. I'd watched it to completion. Hated the way it ended. Hated this movie. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it I think I saw it on YouTube or something some months after. Yeah, and it was ugly. It was boring. It was poorly paced. The dialogue was clunky. Although I will give it points, some of the dialogue seems better now in retrospect. There are some decent lines. They just kind of get lost in the shuffle because the later acts of the movie just aren't great. And yes, the circus is coming to town. Hooray! Actually, it's come to town. How do you like that? Yeah, it was just not inspiring. And when you waited for years and you hope that hey, maybe they'll come back and give us something good to kind of throw the series out on a better note, or maybe even revive interest in it a little. Yeah, and it was something that wouldn't even qualify as a particularly good episode of the show, let alone a movie. Yeah, so it was a major disappointment. I had never gone back to it because and most of my family even hadn't even seen it, because those of us that had were just like, nope, it sucks, don't bother, and that was that. So when it was announced, apparently this director's cut was announced last year, and I never heard about it. So it was when they just announced the actual release date a few weeks ago. Then I'm like, oh, okay, new R-rated version, recut, supposedly going to restore Chris Carter's, vision for what the movie was supposed to be. And, obviously I was going to have a harder time noticing differences because I haven't watched it since, 2008. So, but here's the thing. I couldn't tell you really any differences other than just it's shorter, which is a bizarre thing. For a director's cut, there are more omissions than there are additions. And reading about it, I remember some of the scenes that people say are missing. They start to come back to me, there was a really dated George Bush joke. There's a few more scenes involving Mulder and Scully's relationships. There's more scenes involving Scully's struggle to treat a sick child, because she's fully a medical doctor by this point. No longer serving in the FBI. And that's kind of weird though, actually, because by trimming those scenes, her role within the story makes even less sense. Because you don't really get what the point of her is if this story's been trimmed down. So I think trimming her sections down does help the pacing of the movie, because I remember getting really tired of that, of continually going back to like, oh, here's Scully dealing with the sick child, when we're supposed to be dealing with like Frankenstein doctors and psychic priests. And a lot of the, it's really weird too. I recall this being an issue, but the new characters for this story. So there's some new FBI agents, played by Exhibit and Amanda Peet. And then, of course, there's Billy Connolly as the priest. And their roles are thankless, underwritten, and they all pretty much disappear for the last act of the movie. For various reasons. But they pretty much just get cleaned out. And then there's, it's so bizarre. Like, okay, I'm glad these characters were in here. Where did they go? We'll call this a spoiler. One of them actually dies off screen. They just mention in conversation like, oh yeah, they're dead. It's really, really odd. It's very stumbly. It's very clumsy. But yeah, so watching it though, I think I had a better time with it coming back after all these years. But yeah, it didn't save it. It's still not a good movie. There's elements of it that I find a little more comforting now, because like it has a very ugly kind of film aesthetic to it. Like there's something about cinematography in the late aughts, you know, kind of a grimness and a griminess and discoloration and all that. And it's still there, though I think they recolored the movie a little bit. Maybe it's just they upgraded the scan. So it looked better, but, and you know, so it's nice to see like, you know, people out in the snow, out in wide areas and everything. But it's still pretty ugly. It's still got just kind of a weird pace, though it's paced better because it's so, you know, so much speedier, because it's like 8 minutes shorter now. But if anything, it fails more as a movie, because it still doesn't work as a supernatural story, as a scary story. And the character work counts even less because there's less of it. So, you know, so you'll still get scenes where everybody's just mad at each other and pissy and over emotional, but it still doesn't go anywhere, and there's less of it, so that it doesn't really seem like there's ever a direction for it. And strangely enough, for all the things that are cut, there's like a legendarily tacky scene in the end credits where Mulder and Scully quite literally wave bye to the audience. And that's still there. They kept that. And I don't quite get why the new version is rated R either. It's not... There are episodes of the show that are more violent. So I don't get what was up with the ratings board, why they had to cut any of this stuff, because I couldn't really say as I noticed any new violence, except I think there was a little bit more involving the two-headed dog, so maybe animal cruelty is what pushed it over the bar. But yeah, still not a good movie. The director's cut is completely pointless. It doesn't salvage it. Thankfully, I can't say that it ruins it either, because it was already nothing special to begin with. And maybe its only purpose to exist might be to just kind of drum up a little more talk about the brand, because there's a supposed new series, new version of the X-Files coming from Ryan Coogler. God, maybe he'll be able to fix it for us. But yeah, who knows? But yeah, so for I Want to Believe either version, it's still lame, and it's weird that it keeps getting put in as this like final sour taste of the franchise for us. You know, we don't ever get to go out on a good ending. This lackluster standalone thing just keeps getting shoved back in our faces as like the new ending every time, and it's just no good. So yeah, interesting to revisit, but yeah, still bad. So a little bit after that, I decided to watch. I went with an anthology. Recently, I picked up a bunch of the Kino Lorber releases of interesting noises. A bunch of Kino Lorber releases of old Dan Curtis horror movies and horror shows and stuff from the 70s. Which, if you've never watched anything from Dan Curtis, I mean, late 60s through a good portion of the 70s, like, he was the horror TV guy. Like, he was the guy to go to. He worked on Dark Shadows, Trilogy of Terror. He worked on the original Kolchak TV movies. I don't think he worked on the show at all. But yeah, like, he's just kind of an integral part of television history for horror. And yeah, he had a lot of TV movies based on classic literature. He had several that were done based on just, you know, he worked with Richard Matheson several times for some of these anthologies. And so Dead of Night actually ties in a little bit with Trilogy of Terror from like 2 years earlier, because he was hoping to start his own horror anthology show. And it never took off, but you know, you make the stuff, you just repackage it, turn it into a movie. Okay, I hope you guys could hear that. That was a strange one. So it was 3 segments. It's very short, and the screenplay throughout is all done by Matheson. Which, likewise, if you don't know Matheson, I mean, he wrote I Am Legend, worked on Twilight Zone, things like that. Also very integral to the history of kind of like horror TV, and just kind of horror in general. But Dead of Night is not the most popular project from these guys. So there's 3 segments in it. The first one is called Second Chance, and it's actually based on a story by, I think his name's Jack Finney. He's the one that wrote Body Snatchers, which we've talked about Body Snatchers in the last few weeks. And this one it's not horror at all. It's just this kind of fantasy nostalgia story. Stars Ed Begley as a young guy, buys a classic car, fixes it up, takes it for a ride down like the old country road, which they say, oh, I swear you could have a drinking game. Every time they say old country road, somebody else goes, old country road? It's almost like the New York City thing from the old salsa ads. They just keep doing it. But he drives his old car down the old country road. I'm giving a pause so you guys can do the old country road bit. And he ends up traveling back in time. And by the time he gets back to the present, things have changed. Magical incidents, you know, yada yada. It's pretty corny. It's kind of standard for this sort of story, but it's not bad. If you're looking for a scary story, though, not the best start for the thing. Second story is There's No Such Thing as Vampires, which is a period piece. It's got Patrick McNee, Elisha Cook, and like they're this lordly family, and Lord whatever his name is, which is Patrick McNee's character, keeps being assaulted by a vampire every night. Her blood is being drained. And, it's spooking everybody, and they're trying to solve, what's actually going on. And McNee's character even summons in, I believe it is his sister's suitor, to help with the situation. I say believe because I kind of drifted out during this one. Like, it's very basic. It almost feels like a lesser, Night Gallery episode. It just doesn't... It has a twist. It's not the best, it sort of happens. But the third story is where the money's at. Like, it's the cover image for the Blu-ray for a reason. And that one's called Bobby. And Bobby was so popular that they even remade it in the 90s when they did Trilogy of Terror 2, which was like remakes of different portions from these previous films. And, Bobby, while also, not a thoroughly original story, is really entertaining. It's got the atmosphere, you know, it's got the spooks. Like, it's the kind of classic thing you imagine, like, catching on TV, you know, late October, leading up to Halloween. And it's kind of a classic monkey's paw storyline. So, woman, she's, you know, you're not quite sure what's up with her, but she's picking up some supplies. She comes home, talks to her husband. You start to learn their kid's dead. Husband's on a business trip, but yeah, they lost their son, Bobby. He, like, died swimming. Well, all the supplies that mom picked up, she decides she's going to have a supernatural spell session that night and bring Bobby back to her. Initially, she doesn't think it works. You know, she summons up a spirit, demands that her son be returned to her. Nothing happens. Later that night, knocking on the door, and there's Bobby. But yeah, for spooky, how you like the insides of these old horse barns? Yeah, there's Bobby. He claims that he was actually staying with people not too far away. They had found him on the beach. He couldn't remember anything till tonight, but he's come back to her. So she's given up on all the supernatural aspects and just so happy to have him back. And it doesn't take long for things to get weird. Bobby starts asking weird questions, behaving strangely, getting a little aggressive, and demands to play hide and seek. The game of hide and seek that he decides to play, though, is kind of like, you know, the kind of like the Ready or Not version. It involves knives and things like that. So yeah, it's a good majority of it is mom and her kid trying to outmaneuver each other in this house during a thunderstorm. And then it has like a spooky reveal at the end. It's got good twists and everything. It's a really good one. Like, there's a reason that this one is held in high enough regard to basically keep Dead of Night in the conversation, despite otherwise being a kind of lackluster anthology. So that one, like, if I were to do some sort of like master cut, like the best anthology bits, I'd probably have Bobby in there, because it's just fun. But what was also really fun on that disc is there's a bonus feature that is Dead of Night. I think it's Darkness at Blaisedon, or Blaisedon. And so this is the original Dead of Night project. Like, the theme song music for it is even used in the TV movie anthology. But what it was late 60s, Dan Curtis was going to try and launch a show that was kind of like supernatural detectives. And this was, oddly enough, this was a really big thing in the 60s. There was Fear No Evil, Coal Shack, Dark Intruder, was it like the Ghost of Sierra de Cobra? Yeah, all of these were like meant as TV projects, TV launches. Sometimes they end up as TV movies, sometimes they end up as theatrical movies, all in the hopes of launching a like ghost detective or supernatural detective. Most all of them were just like one-offs, though, with like Coal Shack and Fear No Evil being the most successful. Fear No Evil got a sequel movie, and Coal Shack, of course, got its sequel movie and the actual TV show, and then eventually a remake too. But yeah, so there's this like constant attempt to bring this one out. And so in this one's case, the main character, I cannot remember his name, but he's played by Kerwin Williams, who I think played Sinbad. It was like the sailor, not the comedian. Yeah, he was like one of the actors for Sinbad in movies. And he's got, I can't think I recognize any projects from the other guy. He has like an Indian like guy Friday, who's very hip and, you know, attractive and fun-loving and all that. And that's actually kind of the neat trick with them as characters for like supernatural detectives, because usually you get either like the mysterious types, you know, like in Fear No Evil, or you get, you know, kind of the bummy types like Coal Shack. But these guys, they're kind of like fun-loving nerds. Like, they really enjoy doing this, And like I said, they're kind of nerdy because despite the fact that Kerwin Williams, is this kind of traditionally like hunky leading man, he gets nervous around women a little bit. Like he flirts with them, but he still kind of like, gets a little choked up. But they're also living like kind of a jet setting 60s lifestyle, hanging out in their apartment, listening to like bossa nova. But their first case involves a woman. She inherits a house from like an uncle she never knew about. It's got this whole backstory of being haunted. She can't sell the place. She can't afford to keep it, but she can't sell it because, everybody gets scared off by the place. And so they go to spend the night, see if they can prove the existence of ghosts, and expel them if possible. Adventure and spookiness ensues. And I mean like classic spookiness, a big old haunted house set, coated in cobwebs, candelabra lighting, evil paintings, anything you could ask for, pretty much. And it is surprisingly a lot of fun, and it makes a good pair, if you watch the Dead of Night movie and then you watch this too. You can basically just count it as like segment 4. I kind of wish there was a world where like that had gone to like a show, because to have had something with that feel on a regular basis would have been really cool. But alas, it was not meant to be. But yeah, that part though, like if you can get your hands on it, like I said, the Bobby segment of Dead of Night is really, really good. Like, so if you catch it on streaming or something, you can skip the first couple of sections of the movie and watch that part. And if you have access, I think that pilot for the original Dead of Night sometimes ends up on things like Tubi and all that, so you can find that too. It's not bad entertainment. It's not life-changing, but it gives you what you want. It's a decent bit of fun. Oh god, where do we want to go from here? So, those are all pretty good. The last thing that I watched that night, I decided to finalize a double feature that I've been working on. So I watched Santet 2. And so you all may remember me a few weeks ago talking about the first one, Indonesian black magic horror movie starring Susanna, who was like Indonesia's Scream Queen Supreme. And the second one, it wastes no time. It kicks straight in. It's a year later. Susanna's character is visited by the witch that had like trained the witch from the previous movie, and so she's seeking out spiritual revenge, and forces Susanna's character to become a tiger woman. So she immediately, first scene, turns into a tiger, and the tiger effects are adorable. Guys, this is like, it's like a stuffed tiger that you'd get for a sick kid. And they throw it at people, and it stalks through the jungle, and it's delightful. And its tail coming out kind of looks like a fuzzy poop. It's hilarious. And so on the weird, wild scale, it's already a better movie right at the start. And strangely enough, it's better filmed and kind of better paced most of the time than the previous movie, despite being made just like a year later. And so initially when watching, I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying this a lot more. Like this is almost what I was hoping for when I turned on the first one. But, we're gonna put the finger out. But half of the movie is spent on these just endless comedy sequences involving bumbling cops. Namely, a bumbling cop that keeps cheating on his wife. These are pointless. They go nowhere. One of them has a dream sequence musical number. Oh, yeah. So if you were to remove all of this, you'd be left with, a 35-minute, 40-minute, entertaining if bad, Tiger Lady flick. But you watch it with all this other stuff, and you just keep coming back to, goofy, people fall over, people got buck teeth, mistaken identity, multiple scenes where the bumbling cops go and harass like different infirmed people or deformed people, because hilarious. Yeah, it's like it's the sort of stuff where like it wasn't even a good idea then, and it's definitely not a good idea now, and it was not done well. Yeah, so like I said, it sucks because just the straight up horror movie sections, absolutely funny. Like, they're funny, still kind of spooky, not in an actual scary way, but it makes for an entertaining time. Oh, Lord. So, I would say, overall though, avoid the entire Santet series. Susanna may have some better movies. I've only ever seen one other of her movies outside of this series. Maybe I'll find something good for her, because I found, kind of much like Dan Curtis, I now own like 8 of them. So, you know, there better be at least a good one somewhere. But yeah, that was the weekend's entertainment. I wish I had to say more about Santet, but that's really all there is to it. Like, it's half good bad horror movie, half irritating crap comedy. So overall though, for the night, I would say the things best for you to look up would, yeah, if you get on like Tubi or something, you know, find yourself Dead of Night, skip all the way to the 3rd section, watch Bobby. Good time for all. Yeah, and I think that's really all for tonight. So I will see you guys next time. I wish we had gotten more dramatic weather. Oh well. That's what I get for braving it. So, you all take care of yourselves, mash the buttons, and I'll see you later.